going to take the lead on this. Um, Two coastal warriors died within the last, one within a few days ago and the other a few days before. Um, Chris Tholog, who served on the Montero Water and Sanitary District Board and I believe he was on SAM, passed away. And he was also instrumental in us having the tunnel. He was one of the technical leaders and financial leaders in getting the tunnel initiative passed and in herding the project through to completion, to where we could be comfortable that it would get completed. He was just a wonderful person who, it's a sad loss for the coast to lose Chris. He was a young man, and although he died of natural causes, it's a shame. The other, I think everyone on the coast knows, and he was known as Padre, um, John Lynch. He ran for city council and was never elected.
Mm.
Uh, but he did more as a citizen and is a shining example of what one person can do to make a difference in the lives of so many. I can't even begin to list the number of campaigns that he worked on. I worked on him with a few, and one of the ones that I think everyone on the coast will appreciate but wouldn't know he was instrumental in was getting what is now New Leaf into an old grocery store that was vacant and not leased out. And John took up a project of trying to get Trader Joe's in Half Moon Bay. And he collected signatures. We collected signatures. His strength was collecting signatures. I think if he has a headstone, it needs to have a sign here place for everyone to go by. He collected signatures and he got so many signatures and he sent them to Trader Joe's and he made a public statement about it. Trader Joe said, nah, you're not in our demographics. But New Leaf, even better than Trader Joe's, said, oh, we're looking to expand. And if Half Moon Bay area wants someone like us, we'd love to move in. And it's just been a very strong and successful store. Hi, Greg, and used by everyone up and down the coast. John's most recent passion was in filling the needs of the homeless population here, and he spent a lot of time and a whole lot of his own financial resources to get people things like clean socks and food. John is a remarkable person. I think I know anybody who ever worked with John yeah, although he was 95, so this was not unexpected, his loss will leave a big hole for so many of us. And so I would like to close, when we close this meeting, I want to close it in honor of John Lynch and Chris Tholog, two coastal warriors who have influenced what is here now and what will be here in the future
Here,
for
here.
many, many years.
Catherine, I would like to add a third person to that, Judy Macias.
I
Oh, yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah, Judy passed several weeks ago. And Judy was responsible for so many things. She started out as community development director at Seton Daly City, and worked there for many years. But she was the one who got our free medical care clinic, RotaCare, started here. She was also responsible for getting Sonrisas here. And her latest accomplishment was to begin a group called Village of the Coastside, which was an aging in place organization. getting seniors to help each other and help themselves and get help from others. So her presence will be dearly missed. She was a sweetheart.
Oh, absolutely. We are blessed in this community to have people who, just based on passion and care for the community, just go to bat so many times for the whole area. So we will add Judy Messias to closing this meeting in honor of too. Um, Absolutely wonderful people. Moving along, do we have any other public comment?
Nope, I
Greg?
haven't received anything.
Okay, Greg, I don't see you waving your hand and your picture's not there. Oh, there you are, no public comment. Thank you very much. These hand signals work so well. Moving right along then to consent agenda. Approve the minutes of September 14, 2020, regular board meeting, approve disbursements for October 12, 2020, and monthly review and expense report for period ending August 31, 2020. Do we have a motion? Does anybody want any item pulled? And then seeing none, do we have a motion and a second?
Move to accept.
Second.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote, please.
Director Radek,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Lohman,
Yes.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Dye,
Yes.
Chair Slater Carter.
Aye.
Motion passed. I would like to add that in the monthly revenue and expense report, item 3C, we've added a summarized financial statement for the first time. We'd like the directors to give us feedback and see whether we need to make any improvements in our future meetings. We've added that for the first time.
Thank you. I was pleased to see that there. I think that's a big accomplishment. And I'm going to assume George and Peter and Jesse had something to do with that. Thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So now we have review and receive, oh, I'm sorry, adopt a resolution expressing appreciation for Jim Blanchard for his years of service on the SAM Board of Directors. And I'm going to add for parks and open space and so many other things for the community. And Matthew and Barbara, maybe you can speak to that a little bit. Jim is one of the Coastside heroes. He's been involved in for so long, and he's just a fabulous guy.
Well, as you said, he was in a lot of different activity areas on open space and preservation, etc. And here, most important is he was a founder and mainstay of Midcoast Parklands, and worked for that organization for years in El Granada. And he and well, Fran Pollard was the other most prominent, are responsible for Quarry Park being a park. So, yes, we could add him to the adjournment too. Oh, no, wait, not yet.
Not
Sorry.
yet.
Yeah,
No, he's
Yeah.
still,
A long time from now, we hope.
yes.
he's going to
I'm
stay
able
on
to-
the GSD board until for another month or I guess 2 months till the end of his term. And we wish him well. And he has been a really important member of the board for GCSD for a long time. So we will be sad to see him retire.
So, Rick, would Matthew and Barbara like to make the motion and the second for this after Rick and anybody else talks? Rick,
Just a quick comment. I would hope that the coast side realizes the amazingly high density of amazing people that we have out here on the coast. I've lived a lot of places and I think it's stunning the amount of work that people here on the coast do to save the coast and everything else, participation. It's just an amazing environment out here, and I hope we can protect it.
Only through the efforts of people like John and Jim and Chris and Judy and a whole lot of other people who are working quietly to make this a better place. And so, do we have a motion?
I would like to make the motion to adopt a resolution expressing appreciation for Director Jim Blanchard.
And a second?
I'd like to second it.
And roll call vote, please.
Director Radek,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Dye,
Aye.
Chair Slater Carter,
Yes,
motion passed.
motion passes. I'm signing checks, guys. Since I'm on the coast, I volunteered to sign checks and save somebody a carpal tunnel syndrome. Now we are going to review and receive the financial report for fiscal year 18-19, budget versus actual, from the audited financial statement.
Yeah, so the 18-19 audit was brought to the board in the last meeting. It was received and accepted. And as a part of the audit report, we decided to bring the financial report, which is basically the budget versus actual. It's already in your packet, but Peter from Mays Consultants would make a presentation, and he's here to answer any questions. Peter, I will I'll let you share the screen. You go ahead, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, thank you for that, Kishan, but I do not have a PowerPoint presentation to present to you folks.
Okay.
We can begin to develop that in future years. What I really wanted to have to display and really talk about is the fiscal year 18-19 audit was reviewed and accepted last month. The value of the audit is to provide representation by independent party that the financial statements presented were fairly presented without material misstatement. And that is of great value. But what it doesn't provide is any kind of acknowledgement of the process, of the budget process. This presentation that is in front of you is an effort of doing so. The financial statements do not have some statements that you may see do have budget to actual financials presented. Apologize. Ours don't, and it's not that it's. I believe it could be something that we discuss further on, but as of right now, we do not have a budget to actual. Our presentation is a one fund. Internally, we maintain several funds, but in terms of our audit, we only present one fund. So with that, I will go into the presentation.
Peter, real quick, we're still getting a lot of feedback from somebody.
Yeah, I don't know who it's coming from, but it's not from me.
Sure. If everybody could mute who's not speaking, that'd be great. Thanks.
That's probably me.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The noise that you'll get feedback will possibly be from my dog. I apologize for that. You threw me off at the beginning. Hopefully he will be nice and quiet. Okay, so the presentation as I have it is supposed to be reviewed in conjunction with the audit. As I was saying, the audit it provides representation that we have fairly stated financials as we provided them to the auditor, to the auditors proper. But it does not have a comparison to the budget. So if we turn to page 2, this is the view of the fiscal year 18-19 audit. Our bottom lines we tie out to our statement of activities, and we provide our budget as accepted by the SAM board. My our executive summary presents a comparison and a discussion based on this view, categories based on the audited line items, beginning with our operational revenue, our operational expenses, our non-operating revenue, and our capital contributions. The executive summary talks about all revenues up front, and then our expenditures follow it up. I can answer questions on there if we have specific ones. The main one that I want to point out is infrastructure. This is an item that, and if we become more involved with the budget process, we may need to discuss further with the finance committee and the full board as far as how we budget for our infrastructure expenses. They are important to budget. A CIP budget is absolutely essential, but the way that it happens through the budget view is not indicative of how the audit it will fall out, mainly because for all these capital expenditures that SAM has at fiscal year end, as a part of the close, we must capitalize these as prescribed by GAAP. So that is why you see the major fluctuation in terms of the expenditure line item infrastructure, is because throughout the year we book expenditures to this line item or to various line items within this account category or grouping. But then at fiscal year end, we go in and we review all of these, and we find out, and we decipher which are going to be capitalized. This year we had over $1 million in capitalized expenses. So if these $1 million were to be here, we would have a closer variance, but we would have problems with our audit. So we're kind of, in terms of a budget, we're kind of in a situation to where we're going to have to answer a question one way or the other. But I believe it to be a budgeting issue. Issue is probably not the right word to use, but something to just keep in mind as you go through here and see large variances. I said if there's specific variance questions, we can loop back and I'll talk about those. But I wanted to move on. First page, like I said, page 2 is really the view of our audited line items as compared to our budget based on our budget document for fiscal year 18-19, and then the various variances. And like I said, if there's questions there, we can loop back. So moving forward, page 3 is the discussion on our reserves. We don't, I'm terming the cash we have in bank as reserves, as we've heard from Mr. John Cropper, that he does not see these as reserves at this point because our unrestricted net assets does not allow to have these types of reserves from an audit view. We've had this discussion, and I'm not in agreement with him. Liabilities that we have are long-term in nature and highly unlikely to be called. So this sheet discusses the cash we have on hand, both in tri-counties and in LAIF at June 30, 2019. So close to $3 million. I'm sorry, over $3 million. So I wanted to bring this to your attention because I said it's what a big chunk of what the operation is in line to do, and that is to have a healthy reserves if need be. Moving on, I go into the capital asset discussion because I think it's important to highlight all the completed projects and the ongoing projects. A lot of the resources that SAM has and collects from member agencies is devoted toward maintaining and improving our capital infrastructure. So like I said, this past year, over $1 million of expenditures this year were capitalized. This goes toward completing projects as well as construction in process. And these projects are detailed out. That is page 4 as well as page 5, just to see the different types of page 5 breaks it out in a little more detail: plant facility, admin, equipment, our pump station, pipes, and other CIP. But just two different views on the same thing of capital improvements. Okay. So moving on to page 6, before we really got into here, I wanted to highlight H and I comments are flip-flopped. H should be miscellaneous expenses and I is miscellaneous benefits. Okay, so in comparison to page 2, which shows our audited line items, within those audited line items, there are what we call objects. And so this sheet is a discussion of our budget by object code. Because for example, the treatment expense, within there, we have items such as health and benefits, insurance, wages, miscellaneous benefits, miscellaneous expenses. All these various expenditure categories that we have listed here are all within each and every one of our line items from the audit. So that takes a specific category type, being administrative, treatment, lab, our collections, infrastructure. Within those 5 expense line item in terms of category for our presentation for our statement of activities, within each of those line items are multiple accounts, and a lot of them are here with what you see. So it's a better indication of, I believe, how you guys budget, because it said this is more of the budget view that you see. When page 2 takes that budget document and categorizes them within those line items. But in terms of how we object certain expenses, say for example wages, this will give you a better indication of overall how these line items fell out. So within here, we also the subsequent 3 pages discuss possible questions that may arise or discussion of variances that has arisen based on this analysis. So this is what I want to bring to you in terms of at the completion of each audit, this presentation will follow. I said just a way to kind of bring closure to the year, because I said a lot of work is put into the budget by the finance committee and the full board, and it should have a tie-in with our audit to say, okay, well, this is how we budgeted before the year. We review the financial at each board meeting, and we want to know how we're tracking. So at the end of it, we should say, this is how it all fell out, and we have the assurance from the auditor saying that our numbers are good. Going through this process, yes, our numbers are good. We are noticing there is definitely a lot of room for improvement based on our day-to-day operations, but with the help of Jesse and George, they've made tremendous strides in cleaning that up. And I'm hoping that with the 1920 audit, I guess I'm hoping that I have this presentation in December, which would mean that our 1920 audit has been issued. If not, very soon in January, we'll see. But that's going to be the goal. And like I said, this presentation is kind of just the overall lead into kind of what I see as a year-long review, fiscal year-end budget to actual. I also like to do a mid-year budget review, and then that will lead us right into budget season and development of the budget that way. So with that, I'll turn it over to questions from the board.
I have to unmute myself. Barbara.
I don't want to go into it in detail tonight, but I'm wondering if you could provide us some information about the process, how capitalization works, and what impact it has, because it seems to be an important factor. And I'll be the first one to admit, I don't really understand how it works. So if you could point us to some resources and also specifically how it works for our financials. Most of the other financials make sense to me, but that part is still a little mysterious. So I would like to get up to speed. So if you can help me do that.
This one won't take long.
Okay.
Full board. So within our audit financial statements, we have our capitalization policy. It's actually note subsection 5 of note 1. The purchase or acquisition of an asset with the original cost over $5,000 and or more, what's the year? Between 3 and 50 years is to be capitalized. Okay, so that is in general, and I will give you the full footnote tomorrow sent your way. But really, what this is saying is that any type of acquisition that is made that has a useful life and is over $5,000 theoretically should be capitalized.
I know, but I want to know what exactly that means. So thank you. I will look forward to getting something for you. From you.
Thank you. I
And
don't
thank you, Peter.
see
It's great to have you helping us. Sorry.
any other, do we have other questions? Rick, did I see your hand up?
I believe
Matthew?
Greg has raised his hand.
Oh, I have Greg covered by something else. So Greg, what's your question?
Well, I have two questions. One is, what's the difference between an object code and what we used to call a general ledger account number?
Okay, for that one, so the account structure that Sam uses is the first three numbers are the fund number, the second are the department code, and the last four numbers of the string is the object code. The object code would represent. So an example would be within the wages subcategory, we would have hourly employees, salaried employees, bereavement pay, various types of pay that would go into what we would term wages. So this view here that's on page 6 is a view by object summarized.
My other question has to do with the reserves. Back on page 3, I'm a little confused about what I'm seeing here. I see the policy for an emergency reserve, and I see a statement that those reserves were held of $1.25 million. Down below, I see a calculation of the policy target, and then I see a couple of lines for, I'll call them bank balances, Tri-County and Life. So I guess my question is, it would appear that the policy requirement is $1.25 million plus $1,146,315, or $2.4 million, right? And it would appear that you have about $3 million in balance. So my question is, it wasn't presented in a way that I understood. Do I understand it correctly?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay, well, I would just suggest that if I were presenting this, I'd have the policy in one section with a subtotal, and I'd have the actual, cash in reserves on another, and I would show a variance if there was one, but that's up to you.
No,
Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. I said the only issue that we have here is just I'm hesitant to actually call these our actual cash reserves. As I said, as we compare to the audit, which this is, we do not have the unrestricted net fund balance to cover $3 million in reserves. These are the cash balances that we have on hand, both in Leif and in Tri-County's bank. Agree on your point. I believe the terminology here is a bit misleading, and I will clean it up as we move forward.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we need to I believe we need to receive this report.
Yes, receive and file the report.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion by Barbara, second by
Second.
Deborah Penrose. Thank you very much. Roll call vote, please.
Director Radek?
Yes.
Director Radek?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Clark? Director Clark?
You're muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
Aye.
Director Lohman?
Yes.
Director Penrose?
Yes.
Director Dye?
Aye.
Chair Slater Carter?
Yes,
Motion passed.
motion passes. Good job. Moving right along to the fun part. Report on goat grazing. I hope we've got pictures.
Yes, you have that in your packet, but I'd like to mention that this is the second year in a row that we've done this weed abatement program. And our special thanks to Half Moon Bay and to the biologists, especially the Half Moon Bay Planning Department, by which who helped us a lot and by which we were able to complete it without any hitches. And I let Tim Costello give us a brief on the entire goat grazing program. Tim,
Sure.
yours.
Oh boy. The well, I don't have anything right in front of me because I'm not at the office. So the biologists came out like they were supposed to do. We were in contact with the Landstar people. Those are the ones that supply the goats. And biologists came out and did the pre-walk and checked everything out. And I worked real close with Doug and with Doug at the city and the biologists and the other folks at the city just to make sure everything, we were in compliance with everything and did everything like we're supposed to. After it was all done, we did come to the end, and the fire department wants us to go in and do some cleanup work that they didn't feel the goats had done enough of. So we have to go in and do a little bit of hand work, I guess, to remove some more stuff. But it went pretty well. It seems to be getting better each year. We're figuring different things out every year, so it's getting better. Yeah, but it all went well. It's all good. That's about all I have.
Any questions?
Just quick comment. Would it be possible to get some pictures up on the SAM website or something? I think that's a great community effort. And it looks good for everybody involved. I think that look, a couple of pictures would be great on the website.
Sure, we can do that.
And I thought the report was very comprehensive, and you could see a lot of care had been taken in figuring out how to do it in the best possible way to protect the positive environment. It's interesting because, the birding community likes all the fennel, and which is really not native, is an invasive plant, but this area is indeed known for the warblers that come through this property. So I think the compromise that was worked out is really is very good.
Good. You're muted, Catherine.
Thank you. Push the button. Moving right along, the last item on regular business is a discussion of renting the Baker tanks.
Yeah, these are primarily portable storage tanks, which are called Baker tanks or blue tanks, which we've had in the past. And last year we did not have any tanks installed, but the year before that, we've had a couple of them installed at Portola Pump Station as well as Montera Pump Station. And these were handy when they were either during wet weather or during the time when there was any maintenance or any repair required on the pipeline, on the intertie pipeline. So primarily what we do is we check out the weather in the forthcoming months, and determine whether it is required or not. And last year it was not required. And this year, we're not sure whether we need it or not, but as the weather forecast goes right now, I don't think it is required, but nevertheless, we thought we should bring it to this forum. And these are primarily placed in, like I told you, placed at Portola Pump Station and Montera Pump Station. And this is out of convenience and the way it was located. And since the space was available, we've been doing that for the past so many years. And we are here to discuss on it. And if there are any questions, I'm ready to answer. We do have a quotation from the Baker tank supplier, and approximately it costs about $4,600 for mobilization for pickup and delivery. And the rental for the 2 tanks on a 28-day cycle is about $1,400. So for the 2 tanks, we would be spending roughly about $6,000 per month.
Barbara,
What is the lead time to get these ordered and delivered?
Well, it would be a couple of weeks, but if it's raining next week, it would be difficult for us to get it this week. Did I answer your question? We would definitely need to give them time because there'll be a lot in demand, and we need to have a couple of weeks prior intimation to them. But just giving them 1 or 2 weeks would be very difficult because not only that, the availability, we would also need to spend a lot of staff time to hook it up and keep it ready. Tim, did you want to add anything else?
No, no.
Okay.
so any more questions, Deborah?
I just want to say, I think it's probably a good idea. I noticed that on the long-term weather map from, I think it was AccuWeather, it shows the Bay Area sort of on the cusp of the predicted wet winter northwest. I noticed the southernmost boundary is probably about 15 or 20 miles south of the Bay Area. So I think it's important to have, some emergency props on hand just in case. So I think it's a smart move, and thanks to Keisha.
Did you say we're on the cusp, and is the major amount of rain going to the north of us or the south of us?
To the south of, to the north of us. It shows the Northwest having above average rainfall, and that region actually includes the Bay Area, but we're like just on the border, the southernmost border of the area that's defined as having above average rainfall. So, I'm guessing there's a margin of error there, but I think given that, it's good to have some emergency backup. So
I've been looking at rainfall records for the Half Moon Bay Airport, which are available on the Montera Water and Sanitary District website. We've got our own rain gauge with Balanced Hydrologics, and there's a link to the Half Moon Bay Airport rain reports, and it's fascinating to see how it can shift from one year to the next. And this last year was a very, very low rainfall. It was a little scary, but we've had some years where it's been extremely high. And I think it's useful to have a discussion so that we can give staff the go-ahead if they just need to call these in. It will be nice when the Granada holding tanks are finished, but we don't have them this year, and so I'm a little nervous.
It's interesting. So we were on the cusp. So the above average rainfall map showed, South Central and Southern California having above average last year, and we were on the cusp of the northernmost border last year. So we're kind of like in this middle zone. We might get some or not, So, yeah.
Right.
Alvaro, our famous local biologist and birder, was just sharing with everyone that they're predicting a dry year. However, having said that, this price does not seem particularly exorbitant. It seems prudent to go ahead and do this and have that extra protection. So I would support whatever the experts at SAM think we should do.
I think it's still too early.
I have a question. Keishan mentioned that they've typically been placed in Montera and Granada. And is there a reason for that based on flow or I&I, or is it just a convenience factor where it's easiest to hook them into the SAM system?
Yeah, I would think it's just a practice from the past that we've been doing it for convenience and for the space availability. We've got space at Portola Pump Station where we can really man those 2 tanks. And even from the engineering point of view, it is easy to hook it up there at Portola and Montera. And therefore, those sites were chosen in the past, and we continue to do that. Did that answer your question?
Okay, so it's just a convenience factor. It's nothing to do with the flow or the engineering of the plant. I've always wondered about that.
Yep.
Okay, any more comments, questions from the audience?
Well, Tim said he
Just-
thought it's too soon.
Catherine,
So,
Yo, Rick.
just real quick comment, just appears again that the point of all these activities is to buffer the large rainstorms so we control the flow into the plant. So all the mediation is being done in the north. This allows Half Moon Bay flow to go in and saves the coastside in general from overflows, which would be millions of dollars. So we just continue this policy, year by year because it's working. So.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Well, moving right along then, because this was just for an information item. I think Keishan and Tim have a straw poll that we all approve of this continuing. Let's move on to the general manager's report. Oh, Barbara, I'm sorry.
no, Matthew.
Yes, I was waving my hand. I know,
I'm sorry, Matthew.
as I recall, in the past, we had 2 tanks at Portola and 2 at MWSD, and we have only rented 2 total, according to the document. So I assume that means that if we decide we need them, we can always get another 2. Is that right?
Yes, we just got a proposal for 2 tanks, but if we need more, we can always get more. It was just a proposal to get an idea about how much it's going to cost this year.
And second question is, does SAM anticipate when the expanded wet weather storage facility is completed here in El Granada that we'll be doing this Baker tank procedure annually anyway?
The wet weather storage expansion project is estimated to be completed by end March of next year. So it'll be available for us only late spring.
Right.
So will we need the Baker tanks after that's done,
No,
or will
no.
we need them? How
Sorry,
will that?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get that question clear, but once the expansion has taken place, we would definitely not need the Baker tanks because the Baker tanks are just about 20,000 gallons. 20,000 gallons each. So the wet weather storage expansion is far more than that. It's 200,000 gallons.
So if we were to convert 200,000 gallons,
10,
that would
10,
be what, 100 tanks,
10
10.
tanks. 10.
10,
10.
10.
10.
10 tanks. Okay. And so that would save us quite a bit of money every year. I know
Yep.
we've had, some years we've had 10 tanks, I think. 5 in Montera and 5 in Granada.
Yeah, more than that, it's also more of a hassle for the staff to hook it up and have all these pipes going in with the couplings and connecting it. So not an easy task.
But they could be located anywhere they're needed.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Any more questions? Deborah?
Not a question. I just want to say, if folks attended to their infiltration and inflow problems, you probably wouldn't need banker tanks or a storage. Just want to make that point.
I would love, now you guys are having a study done on I&I?
We're having a hydraulic study done, yes.
A hydraulic study. Is that going to include I&I? Or is that just the where the flows are?
It's focusing on the operation and the capacity of the system.
Okay. And how does that affect I&I?
If you deal with your stormwater inflow problems, your I&I problems, you have less need for sort of, big storage projects that cost a lot of money. If you keep things from flowing into your system, you have more capacity to handle your flows, and you don't need these sort of emergency tank things. That's all I'm saying.
Chair,
Oh,
may I speak?
Catherine?
Rick?
We've done a study and of basically all the agency flows, basically normal weather and in water or heavy rain eras. And there are equal increases in all agencies' flows during the rainy seasons. So we'd appreciate not being accused of being slackers. And I believe we possibly, we could match budgets on how much I&I repair we do. But until you produce a report that says this is our fault, which you seem to be saying, I'd like to pass on that.
Okay. John Dowdy, were you
Only to, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to rehash the debate over the storage. But I will say this, we are in phase 2 of smoke testing for another significant area. We just issued the notice to proceed for work on that. And we're down to one lot and one property that we're dealing with mitigation on the smoke testing for phase 1. We are also developed basically a 1/3 of our sewer system for CCTV. Now, basically a third each year for a 3-year CCTV schedule. So we are, what I can say is that we are critically looking at and evaluating and continuing to do work on our I&I. I can't speak to, will not speak to what the other agencies are doing, but I can say that we are taking it seriously and expending quite a bit of money and time and effort to ensure that we are addressing it. So I'll leave it at that.
That's good news. I will say we do CCTV of our lines, and whatever board member doesn't show up to a meeting without adequate notice to the chair gets to view those tapes. So we're doing that continually, and it's amazing how it has improved attendance. Barbara.
I just want to say we're just about to start a major pipe replacement project based on the CCTV that was done in the past. So I think we're all working to make our systems better.
I think absolutely. Good. Well, let's move on from this then, and we are going to attorney's report.
Yeah, I have one thing to share with.
We need to go to the general manager's report, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped that one.
I think you started on it, and we.
I do. I'm looking at fine print with old eyes. General manager's report.
Yeah, 5A and 5A. That's already in your packet. The detailed report is in your packet, but I'd like to highlight one of the items which was brought to me as a question from one of the directors, asking me to explain more about the violations, the BAQMD violations. Although we spoke about it in the last board meeting when we got the pump approval, I'd like to elaborate on it a little bit more. Now, we had these violations at the plant. We have 2 pumps on rental basis. One is a rental chopper pump, which is used at the for the digester. and that was not registered with BAQMD by the rental agency. We were not aware of it. The pump was rented because we had constant ragging issues and the digester plugging lines. And we were not aware that the rental agency had not registered with BAQMD, and therefore it was a violation. We do understand that it's our responsibility to ensure that all these permits are in place, but this was not done, and therefore this was the first violation for the pump, for the first pump. And the second pump where we had a violation was because we had rented a trash pump for many years. Typically, there is an agency which is a portable equipment registration program, which is a part of the air quality, and which allows agencies to rent pumps for 1 year, and then they do not need to get special permits. And therefore, this is issued by PERP, which is a portable equipment registration program. Now, this was done by the rental agency who supplied the pump, but we kept it for more than a year, for a longer time, and therefore it was a violation. It was our responsibility to get the permit. Now, both the pumps have gone back to the rental agencies. We do have one rental on site, which is permitted, but we would be returning this pump once we get the purchase pump, which was approved by the board the last meeting. Once we get it hooked up and ready to use, we will send it back. So I just wanted to give a detail about it. If there are any more questions, we are here to answer.
Barbara?
Both of these pumps were working fine. This is really just a paperwork issue, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you for your responses to me earlier too.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any more questions on this item? All right, let's move on to the item B in the general manager's report.
Yeah, 5B is a report from wastewater management specialists. I don't see Dan Child here, but if you have any questions, I can answer it or pass it on to him. Okay, I don't see any questions.
Seeing no hands waving wildly. Moving on now to attorney's report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, honorable board members. I'm going to share one thing with you. There's always, at the end of the legislative session, there's always interesting things that come out of it. But one of the even more interesting things this year was an amendment to the Brown Act. The Brown Act is important as a document as it is for public agency work. It doesn't get amended very much, but this time it was, and it deals with social media. So I'm just going to briefly tell you what the legislature passed in a bill called AB 992. And it deals with social media. And so it both allows specifically board members of legislative bodies, such as the Sewer Authority here and other public agencies, to engage with the public via social media, both to educate the public, to answer questions, things like that. So you're specifically allowed to do that on public websites. Now, people did that before anyway, but the legislation now specifically called that out as being okay. But one thing that was not restricted before that you got to be careful of is the legislation, AB 992, specifically prohibits one board member commenting on another board member's post. And that's the idea of preventing serial meetings. And so, but it's even if it's just two board members. And so you can't comment on other board members' post on social media if it's a public website. And you can't like or use an emoji, a like, dislike, puke emoji, whatever. You can't do those. It's considered, it's specifically called out in the statute as being prohibited. So anyway, just want to let the board know that it's an additional area. You got to be careful. You can use social media, but if you do, the bottom line is don't interact with the other board members on the public websites. So that, I'll turn it back over to Kishan. And
Jeremy?
Yeah.
Real quick, since we're all sewer people, is it okay if we use the poop emoji?
You know, I would encourage it. It seems appropriate.
Seems fair.
Yeah, but don't do it on other board members' comment because then you'll violate the
statute.
And the Brown Act applies only to board members, or to who else does it apply to?
Well, the Brown Act applies, this particular part of the Brown Act deals with the legislative body and the issue of serial meetings. So that's what it's getting to. But the Brown Act has other issues. It addresses public meetings, closed sessions, but this really is getting at the issue of being able to interact with the public through social media and avoiding serial meetings. That's really the focus of this bill, which really is about directors. It's about legislative body.
So if one of my general managers posts, I can use an emoji?
You can, but it's probably not a great idea.
Depending on which emoji I choose?
Yes. So it deals with the specific ones, your fellow board members. That's all I have for attorney's report.
Greg.
Yeah.
I've noticed a degree of awkwardness in the deliberations among several public agencies over the last several years. And I've often wondered why they couldn't post a position paper, say Director A posts a position paper on the agency website, which is publicly available, and allow other directors to post comments there in order to advance deliberations and discussion in a public forum. What you're saying implies that would be prohibited, even though it's available for the entire public to see what's going on and to even join in.
Yeah,
I'm a little surprised at that. And, I don't know if you know the story of what happened up in Sonoma when they had the fire. The Brown Act really got in the way of effective management response. So
sure.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I can respond to that. The idea is that discussions about, agency positions should all take place during publicly noticed meetings. Now we're in this weird world right now where we're doing essentially a video meeting. So it's a little bit different. But the idea is that most deliberations and discussions shouldn't occur over the web, shouldn't occur in restaurants, it should occur at publicly noticed meetings. And so what you see from the legislature is a furtherance of that view. But what you just said is it's a point that people could argue is, well, heck, why wouldn't you want to have that discussion? But that's not the current direction. So, good comment.
Thank you. Moving right along to directors' reports. Seeing no hands waving like mad, there are no directors' reports. I will make a statement that there will be a report in the review coming out later in the week about the initiation of the lawsuit by Half Moon Bay against Montera and Granada, with Sam as a real party of interest. And so I would encourage folks to read it and find out what's happening there, and talk to your local districts. Thank you. Topics for future board consideration is an attachment, and we're going to recess this meeting and convene in closed session. So let's take a break for a few minutes, and when I see all of the people who will participate in closed session on camera, we will reconvene in closed session. And thank you to Jesse and Peter and Michelle and everyone else. We will be back on in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jesse.